Hello, my name is Joelle Lowder. I don't know how many of you knew my dad, Steve Lowder. He passed away a couple years ago now, but I moved to Texas not too long ago, live with the wonderful Carla Lowder. So we're very good little roommates with our pack of dogs, so. I'm not much for one public speaking, and hearing myself over the speakers is definitely a trip for me, so bear with me, y'all. And I just moved from the South, so I say y'all. Okay, good. I'm sorry, I came from South Carolina, so it was a little bit more. I don't know, it's not more South, is it? This is more South. It has the word South in the name, so. Linda had asked me to come and give my testimony, and I said yes for some reason, probably God. As I prepared to give my testimony, I was leaning more and more towards, there are things that have happened in my life, but it's not necessarily straight my testimony, and so I hope you bear with me while I give more of a word of encouragement. I felt like that's what God was leading me to do. So to talk about some of the miracles in my life that I've seen and how it is important to go to God with every request that we have, whether or not we think it's silly or not. Hope is powerful, and you need to trust that God has the best for you and has the best in store for you. So one of my favorite stories, and it's a silly little story, is my first experience with how God answered prayers. I was about 6 years old, and I started praying, and I prayed about every night that I could go to Disney World. Now, this might seem like a normal little dream for a girl, but you have to realize is I grew up in Alaska, which meant Disney World was basically on the other side of the world for me. I'd never been to the lower 48. In my mind, that was going to the moon, was going to Disney World. So I prayed, and my mother was a huge prayer warrior, and she taught me to believe that God listened to every single one of your prayers. And God even listens to little 6-year-old girls whose big dream in life was to go to Disney World. So I know that sometimes people tend to dismiss those little dreams that we have. You know, God has bigger problems to deal with, but God cares about every single desire in our hearts. And God does care about those. So she encouraged me to pray. So I did, every little night that I prayed and prayed and prayed. And so for my 8th birthday, I was in Disney World. And I know that seems like such a silly little prayer and such a silly little answer, but it was huge. God moved the mountains in my life at 6, 7, and 8 so that I would be able to go to Disney World. And that just started in my life knowing deep down inside that God answers prayers. He really does. He cares about the prayers inside of our hearts. He cares about those dreams that you've never spoken out loud. He cares about those desires you've never spoken out loud. He oftentimes has been the one that planted them there, hoping and waiting for you to acknowledge them. And so sorry, I'm still nervous. So this reminded me in Luke 11:9, it says, and this is the Amplified, this is going to be paraphrased, ask and keep on asking, it will be given to you. Keep knocking at the door. And that's what I did at 6 years old. I kept knocking on that door until it was opened, and it was a miracle. It really was. Let me see where I am. So that began to lead a broader stroke in my life because I knew whatever I asked for, God would deliver. No matter how it was, no matter if it was what I thought it would look like or not, I knew that God would answer my prayer. So I went on mission trips, and every mission trip I went on was fully funded by God. Every time I prayed, and God fully funded them. Now, that in itself is a miracle. But one of my favorite mission trips is I got to go to Botswana, which is in Africa, for 2 months. And it was a beautiful trip. And it was an amazing time. I got to stay in a small bush village, and a bush village just means out in the deep, deep boonies. No running water, no nothing, no electricity. We slept in tents and had to keep vigil by the campfire all night to make sure that hyenas didn't come. And that was exciting at 16 years old. And so we would walk around and help with chores or work that needed to be done, because that is the most important need that you can fill for someone, is just to be there in the daily life and the daily grime, is just to help people. And so I remember one day, another miracle I was able to witness was we walked to the end of a dirt road. And I don't know why we walked to this particular end of this dirt road. We just felt God leading us down this road. So we went there, and on the ground outside of this little hut was a girl. She was lying on a mat. She was in the fetal position. So we got talking with the family. We discovered she doesn't speak. She doesn't really ever move from that position. So we felt led to pray. And we prayed, and we must have prayed there for an hour. And by the time we left, this little girl was up and smiling and dancing and laughing. And that was a miracle in itself, that she was able to be up and moving around. Her family had said that they had never, ever seen her like this before. And we just felt the demons flee. We felt the spiritual oppression break. The chains were broken off of her that day. And so another amazing story, another amazing miracle that I was able to witness during that time was we were fellowshipping with one of the church members, and calm my nerves, I'm sorry. I'm speaking too fast. She couldn't move her neck at all. She couldn't turn it side to side. And so at that time, when we were just all sitting around fellowshipping together, we were like, well, let's just pray. What's the worst that's going to happen? Nothing. There's no harm in prayer. There's nothing that can be retracted us from praying and believing in God. So we started praying, and by the end of our prayer, she was able to move her neck back and forth. She was able to move it around. It was so amazing that we saw healing after healing on that trip. The last story I'll share, which this is turning up to be a 10-minute message, as I rush through all my notes. I'll fill up something, I'm sure. Is we went to another hut, and that's all this place was hut after hut. And this woman, she was lying on the ground, and she couldn't move, and she was complaining. She's like, I've had this pain. It's so much pain. And so we were like, well, can we pray for you? And they're like, yeah. She's like, I believe in Jesus, and let's pray. So we were praying, and by the end of that prayer session, she was up, moving around, jumping up and down, and praising God because she had been healed completely. And in true African style, she began chopping wood because she was behind on her chores for the day because she had been in pain and couldn't move. And I just wanted to share some encouraging stories of God is real, and miracles do happen today. And it doesn't always look like what we think it'll look like when God answers our prayers. I know I've had that happen. I never thought I would be living in Texas. Again, I should say. But God answers prayers, and God brings you right to where you need to be at the right time. And just fully believing and knowing that God hears our prayers, and sometimes that even means when we pray the desires of our heart, God will be altering our desires to line up with his desires. So sometimes our desires will change over time, and that doesn't mean that God didn't answer that prayer. That means that the prayer changed our hot desires, and the desires now look different. That was all I had. I thought I was going to speak for a lot longer, but
Stay up there and let me ask you.
Okay.
Let me ask you, how did you get to Disney World at as an 8-year-old?
So our family decided to go to the lower 48 in a motorhome. So this was our first experience in a motorhome. My family and I later lived in a motorhome for 5 years. But this was our first taste that got my dad addicted to wanting to live and wanting to travel. So we all packed up. There was 5 of us in a motorhome. And we traveled around in the summer for a couple months. And my grandma took us to Disney World. So God answers prayers through people. All you have to do is listen sometimes. I don't think my grandma was thinking, I'm answering this little girl's prayer right now. Right. She was just thinking how to bless her granddaughter. So.
Yeah. And how did you find out about Botswana?
So there was what's
the name of the mission that you went with? Do you remember?
I do. They're no longer. They have closed their doors since then. But there is an organization called Teen Mania. It was big in Texas. It was in Texas. I was actually an intern there for a year. But I went.
You were an intern in Lindale?
Yeah.
Oh, for a year?
Yeah. Oh. My brother was for 3 years. And then I came after him. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so I was so that's where I said I moved back to Texas because I lived in Texas for a year previously. So they had. I actually worked for Global Expeditions, which was one of their umbrella, which is they focused on getting teenagers out on the mission field. So my first mission trip was to Thailand when I was 14, and I went for 2 months. I didn't know anybody, so that was a leap of faith right there, but both my parents believed in travel and believed in missions, so it wasn't an issue. And like I said, God fully funded it. I don't know how, probably my family members, but it's still an answer to prayer.
That's so cool. My son, Mike, when he was 13, he went with Teen Mania to Peru.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm. He was there for 6 weeks.
Oh, wow.
And he came back so full of the power of God. It was unbelievable.
Yeah.
Because you just be around him and you could feel it.
It was amazing because you're just, the thing about going on mission trips, and I highly recommend it to anybody because it really, this is the cliche everybody always says, is it changes you as much as it changes them. But just going and experiencing different cultures, like I've been to Thailand, I went to Botswana, I went to Panama, even going to Dallas was amazing. I went to Dallas a couple times with their organization, and it's just amazing to experience that and to truly give of yourself and give back. And there's something about that that really changes you inside.
You know, Ron Luce is the founder of Teen Mania, and he has a program now to pastors to help pastors reach the youth for today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was his big passion. That was how it all started, was Teen Mania, and Acquire the Fire was because he was passionate about getting teenagers, how do I say this? Speaking to teenagers how they needed speaking to. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, meet them where they're at.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's how, well, I guess I'll end up telling part of my testimony. That's how it was the first major encounter with God I had was at Acquire the Fire. I guess I can go into it. I was depressed, and was I 13 or 14? But I had just started cutting, and I was really depressed, and I was contemplating suicide, and I wasn't supposed to go. That old story. I wasn't supposed to go to Acquire the Fire, but there was an empty seat in the van, and my brother dragged me along. My brother dragged me along to a lot of things back in the day, and at that seminar, I later found out that was the only Acquire the Fire he spoke directly to people who were cutters. And that really changed my life because he really prayed for us, and it really changed my life because after that I didn't have a problem with that anymore. Wow. I was delivered from that. I still struggle with depression, but it's different when you know the power of God, and So that's part of my testimony. There you guys go. Yeah.
So you talk about the not answering the prayer. So what do you think when he says no?
Ralph is asking, what do you think when God says no to your prayers that you ask?
I think it's always a no, but.
No, it's no.
I think that sometimes it sounds like no to us, but it just means something different to him. Because I don't think, I mean,
That's good.
it also, I'm sorry? It is true. Sometimes, depending on the prayer, it can be, if you're praying, let that person get into a car accident, yeah, then that's not. That's a big no.
I found that sometimes the answer is no.
Yeah, because that's why I said it's a no, but because no, but that's because I have something better for you. Mm-hmm. No, but that's because this thing won't actually bring about the results that you think it will. Yeah. And that's always the big caveat with God. It's he never says no to be mean. He never says no out of spitefulness. It's because he has a better plan and a better purpose. It does. It really does. My mom passed away when I was young, and then my dad passed away a couple years ago, and it was always hard to understand, God, especially with when my mom died. I really, really struggled because I was only 17 years old, but I was a little baby. And
you were the baby of the family.
I was the baby of the family. And so it was so hard because I had never known a woman of stronger faith. And on her deathbed, she was like, I am going to survive this because I know God will heal me. And that was something I struggled with for a while, because how can you have a woman with such profound faith who fully believes? It's not a kernel of a mustard seed. It was the whole mustard seed, And just knowing that, not good came from her death, but good seeds were planted, I don't think I would be as close today with God if that had not happened. Because I ended up going to the internship in Teen Mania, and that's where I first experienced the power of the love of God. Before that, he was just big man in the sky but I experienced the personal love of Jesus, which is really what changes you and can help change your life. That's the meat of the, 7-course meal that he's serving us.
That's good. But one of the things that I have learned as my hair has turned gray and some places
turned
white,
into a beautiful shade.
Oh, thank you. It's that she was really healed.
She was. You know what? That is a good way to look at it.
She really was.
She is. Because the ultimate healing.
Because the Lord has enabled me to see in the spirit realm, and I have seen a person pass, and then I saw that Jesus was right there with them, taking them on into eternity.
Yeah.
But you see, we don't recognize it because we're so
lost in the grief.
That's true. Yeah, that is very true. But we don't see into the spirit realm for the most part. And that's such a gift that I so treasure, to be able to see that. But I can reassure others that the spiritual realm is so there.
Yeah.
It's the
Heaven
veil
is
between,
real.
Yes, the veil between the natural and the spiritual is very thin.
Yeah.
Very thin. And when the Lord enables you to see that, it's like, wow. And he has been revealing and sharing with me more so lately about that whole thing, because probably where I'm at in my life, I'm going to graduate to heaven soon myself.
Hopefully not too soon.
Hopefully, yes. My daughter says that all the time.
A couple dozen more decades will be good.
But, knowing, though, what I have seen and what others have shared about heaven, It is a real place.
It's better than here. So
It is a real place.
they got the better end of that package.
Yeah, they really did. They got the much better end of that package. And I've thought of that because of the loved ones. You know, we've lost Maureen and Debbie and Donna Bullitt, Roger, and the people that we loved that were in this community as our faith community that we've lost. It's like, God, I know that you always have a plan and a purpose for everything, like you were saying earlier. But geez, it's hard on us that left behind.
Yeah, that's like that. No, but they got the better end of that package.
Yeah.
They are, like you said, the ultimate healing because they've graduated, as a word to say, to a better way of living, really. Yeah.
And your mom, from what I heard from your dad and from what the stories we've heard, she was in a lot of pain.
She was in a lot of pain for a lot of years.
Yeah. So her ultimate healing was being free from that earth suit that we get in when we're born into this body. You know, this is our earth suit, and it doesn't always participate in the way we would want it to participate in our dreams and our goals and our desires. So, yeah. Sorry, I just really wanted to hear more of your testimony.
Yeah.
So I'm glad I could pull it out of you, Joelle.
No, thank you. I'm not one for talking about myself, so that's when I felt like God was leading me to share those stories. I was like, oh, this is perfect. Not knowing that it would take me all of 10 minutes to... I wasn't planning on being here for that short of time.
Yeah, no, but it was very good. Is there anything else that comes to mind that you would want to share?
Those are the big miracle healing stories that I've seen.
I want to ask then, how did you get to be a pharmacy tech?
So I was in that internship, and I had a year's worth of call center experience because of that, because I called teenagers and convinced them and their parents to go on mission trips halfway around the world.
Okay.
So that was the one job experience I had, was that internship. So I had a year's worth of call experience. So I was looking for a job, and I was fasting, and I prayed. And that same day I started fasting and praying, they had called me and offered me a job as a pharmacy technician. And so pharmacy technician, I've been a pharmacy technician for 11, 12 years now. And so it completely fell into my lap, was a God thing, because I would have never known to go into pharmacy technician. I got on-the-job training, and then I got certified nationally and state, and the rest is 12 years of history.
Holy smokes. That is.
Yeah, so God answers prayers. I guess that was another prayer answered, man. I mean, I've never seen something happen so fast. I literally started fasting and that same day they called and offered me the job.
Who called and offered you? Was it somebody
It was a
hiring company?
Yeah. And I worked for CVS.
Wow.
Everybody has heard of CVS, so.
I don't know what that is.
CVS, you know, the drugstore.
Oh, CVS drugstore.
Yeah.
Okay, yes, I've heard of them.
But I worked for their call center, their mail order side of things in Phoenix. So I lived in Phoenix.
That's so cool. Anybody else got a question?
It was too hot.
So fun.
Especially for this Alaskan-born baby.
Yeah, that's cool.
Any other questions? I'm opening the floor to questions now.
That was very good. I'm very glad you shared.
Thank you. Sorry, I'm not much for public speaking.
No, it's all good. It's all good. We did good.
Practice makes perfect, so it's just that I don't have much experience. So this is getting one step closer.
Okay.
I'm just getting comfortable.
So when you were on the mission field, as you aged, what was things that you did?
Like, as I got older, did it change?
Yeah. Were you just there as helping hands, basically?
The first couple of times, obviously, I was when I was under 18. when I became 18, they did their teams in a very specific way. They would split everybody into teams. So you'd have like the project director who was over the whole mission over that country, and then you would have these teams, and we'd split up into teams about, I want to say like 20, 25. And then under those teams, you'd have a ministry group, and then you'd also have, what did they call it? It was like, they called it a MIG, but Teen Mania loved their acronym, and I can't remember what it stood for. But basically, your ministry group was co-ed. You would go out. Usually, you'd always want to make sure that at least one boy was in every group just for safety. And then however many other people, there would only be like 4 or 5. And that would be who you go out and minister with every day. Whether that be in Thailand, we walked around a lot of college campuses, and we talked to people there. Or high school campuses. We went to a couple high school campuses as well. Or in Botswana, that's who I would go out to the huts with different people. And then there was who you would basically room with, which was the same sex. And those were the MIGs, but I don't remember what that stands for, and it's bugging me. 6 years of it, and I can't remember what it stands for. And then you would do like personal fellowship with them. So, you would get into Bible studies, and you would do like daily things like that with them. And those were your core people to be with during your time there, other than your missionary, your ministering group. So I had a chance to, obviously, when I was younger, I was just one of the missionaries, and then I would go on to lead my own missionary group. So and then I once had the opportunity to lead a team in Panama. Yeah. That was really hard. I got 3rd degree sunburn. I did not do well on that trip. That trip I should have said no to, but I said yes. Sometimes you say yes to things that God says no to, and you get 3rd degree burns.
But you learn from it, right?
I did learn from it, and I learned how to stick up for myself.
Yeah.
I definitely learned how to stick up for myself during that trip and advocate for my trip. It was my last experience with Teen Mania, and it wasn't a good one.
Oh, that's too bad.
That's okay. I could share the story, but it's not uplifting.
That's okay. We don't need it.
It was a good mission trip, though. It was an amazing trip.
Well, it was just fun to hear your stories.
Thanks.
Yes, I'm glad you didn't mind our questioning you.
No, I appreciate it, because I realized I should take up more time than I was, and so
Yeah,
I'm more than happy to answer any questions.
That's all good. Thank you.
You're welcome.